Adding something new to the farm? Us? Never. Well, there is one thing that I swore I was never going to have back on the homestead. And I do have to admit, this may have been part my instigation.
Well, it's January 6th. It's not too terribly cold out, but we are on our way to pick something up. And this may be a dumb idea, but we'll tell you what it is when we get back.
There we go. Okay, lock it open so they can come to their water.
So ducks are back. So for anybody who's followed along with us since we started this channel, we used to raise ducks. We used to raise a lot of ducks.
Ducks were your gateway bird.
Ducks were the gateway bird for sure. And basically we gave it up before we moved to this property for a variety of reasons that we've touched on before. And we were really giving a good go on the geese. But we just found that the geese, as great as they were in some areas, they competed too much for space and resources with the sheep flock.
But in no way did getting rid of the geese instigate the discussion on getting ducks, because when we got rid of the geese earlier this year, we really were, no, we're not getting anything else. We started the silky experiment, and basically we figured we were good to go. We didn't need anything else, really. And I think it was as we got going further into the year and changing our diet a little bit that we really started going, maybe the ducks were good. And I'll let Chris tell you some of the reasons why we kind of thought maybe we should bring them back. And did you like when we used to have them?
Yes. I liked raclette night.
She liked eating them. You know your kids are homegrown when?
So in a lot of ways, before I get into the why, I'm going to say ducks are a pretty safe choice for us because we've done it on a pretty good scale in the past. And that's one difference that we're doing this time around. We're starting small and we're keeping it that way for a while. Most of you know we do like to do the clan mating where we have multiple lines so that we can keep things going. In the long run, that will likely be the plan, but that requires infrastructure. And that's going to take time. So rather than try to amass a complete duck flock, which we could do, but rather than try doing that all in 1 year, we're going to try to space this out over time a bit so that we can build coops that are enclosed for those times when we have to lock them up. And that's really one of the reasons why we chose the breed we did, which is the Khaki Campbells.
Because as homesteaders, we never do the typical thing of get something before you have infrastructure, right? Right? Hi, Blue. Hi. Oh, you're such a pretty girl. Cat distraction.
So I think the really big reason for the ducks and why we've actually got them now is because of egg production. Khaki Campbells are amazing egg producing birds, and we know that from experience because Khaki Campbell's was one of the two breeds we used to raise and raised for a very long time. I think it was like 13 years or something. It's crazy. Now on the flip side, people are probably going to ask, but you got rid of a flock of large fowl chickens that produce tons of eggs to get a bantam flock of chickens that produces less eggs, and now you're adding ducks.
We don't like to confuse people at all.
But I think it comes down to some various metrics, because the silkies on the meat side of it have some health benefits, which I'm not going to go into in this video. They still produce enough eggs for what we would consume sort of for normal egg consumption. But with some tweaking to our diets and making things like cloud breads and whatnot that require more eggs, we're kind of looking at it going, maybe we need more eggs. So of course the other side of the equation is meat. Now Khaki Campbells are not known to be a meat bird, but if you go back in their history, that's actually where they were created, or why they were created. But in the past, we actually really liked them as a meat bird because they produced a very full breast for the size of the bird, and they were relatively economical in doing so. Now, of course, that means we have to produce young, and most of you know that we don't really like using incubators. We don't actually currently own one. We're going to see, contrary to the sort of information that's out there on the internet and book resources, etc., whether we can get them to go broody. And I think, based on our previous experience, that there's a good chance for the number we would like to produce every year, we can probably do that. But stay tuned to see how we do on that little experiment going forward. So do you think it's a good idea that we've added ducks back to the homestead?
I think so.
I think so too.
They're cute.
And they're tasty.
Yeah.
So of course another, I guess, reason, or looking at those reasons of why we got them, another reason that kind of pushed us over the edge to just jump into it, aside from the fact that it was a good opportunity at a time when we could make it work. Wet homestead decision doesn't work that way, but was the competition factor. And what I mean by that was we sort of chose to get rid of the geese because of the competition for space and resources with the sheep, i.e. they're primarily grazers. That pasture that they needed was pretty substantial and had to be in pretty good shape. Now on the flip side, from our experience raising both sheep and ducks at our old place, the competition wasn't quite so head-to-head between the ducks and the sheep. In fact, the ducks, because they're kind of more omnivorous than the geese, may actually complement the sheep really well and also complement the gardens really well. We were talking about this right before we got this little group of Khaki Campbells, how where we used to live, we never had squash bug problems. And the whole time I've kept ducks, we never really had squash bug problems. And now we have squash bug problems. But we used to winter our ducks in the garden that we grew the squash in. So you had the ready-made exterminator right there. And there's a few other things, such as slugs and snails and things too, that the ducks excel at, even compared to the chickens in that aspect. So definitely things that factored in, not saying they were necessarily the primary reasons. This is one thing we noticed when we used to raise ducks, is when it's below -10 Celsius, they really don't love walking around outside. And they spend quite a bit of time sort of laying down, keeping their feet tucked in. That aside, we definitely find ducks are very weather hardy. So really, why'd we get ducks? Because I like ducks. I like raising ducks. I like eating ducks. I like duck eggs. I find ducks are relatively simple. That being said, there's things that we're going to have to figure out to make it work here. I will admit, when we let the geese go, it was kind of a bit sad for me that we didn't have any waterfowl, and I've raised waterfowl for so many years. But this is something that I think, in the realm of modern world as it is, we still intend to raise them on pasture. We still intend to get them out to do some of those jobs in the garden, etc. But the reason why we're going slow with it is because we still have to do that in such a manner that if those times come that we need to lock them up, confine them, etc., that we can do it. And right at the moment, if we really had to right today, we would be able to put them in the barn because we only have 6. But in the future, we may have more than that. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it complements our gardens here. I'm a big advocate that I think poultry in general are really good when you're gardening on a scale like what we are, if you can incorporate them into it, because they provide a ton of benefits. And ducks versus chickens do very similar things, but they do different things at the same time. So definitely looking forward to that. And on the flip side of it, you'll still get to see some waterfowl content going forward, because as we grow our duck flock and our duck endeavor, they will probably become an important part of our homestead. So stay tuned for more duck content, and probably stay tuned for more cat content, even though it's not exactly like we farm cats. They just exist here.
Part of every homestead.
Yeah, it's
Cat
questionable how useful they are though.
Bath time and then straight to meeting.
Anyway, for the duck.
Yep.